Hey friends, I am so excited about tonight's video. I have not made this first recipe in a long time. It may have even been over a year. I forgot how much we love it, and you're gonna love it too. I think we're getting us a soup guy on our hands. I made another one that we absolutely loved. And I have a dessert. Oh my goodness. It is light, minty, fresh, but it is so chocolatey too. And it's a polka cake. We love them. So let's hop right into it. If you're new here, I'm Mel. Welcome to my kitchen. Tonight, we are going to make a baked Tuscan chicken casserole. This is Maddie's favorite. She's been asking for this for a while, and we just have not had it. I know this looks like a lot of ingredients, especially for me, but honestly, these are all things that I have on hand all the time, and you probably do too. The only thing you may not have is the sun-dried tomatoes, and that's something that I just keep on hand now because we have really got to liking that. The first thing we're going to do is make our seasoning mixture, because we're going to put half of this on our chicken and half of it in our mixture. We're going to do a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, a 1/4 teaspoon of chili powder, a 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder, and an entire teaspoon of Italian seasoning. Now we're going to mix up our cream cheese spread that will go over this chicken. And I had sour cream out here. Well, it doesn't go in here, so there's no sour cream in it. But it does have 3 ounces of cream cheese. Calls for 6 ounces of frozen spinach that you have like thawed out. Squeeze the water out of it really good. And spinach is always so hard to guess how much is enough, but we're going to say that's about right. I'm going to throw in a little bit of garlic. This really calls for a lot of garlic. I'm probably not using as much as it calls for. And a 1/3 cup of heavy cream. Once I begin mixing that, I'm going to bring in some shredded Parmesan cheese. That's probably about a 1/3 of a cup. I like to sprinkle just a little bit of this kind in here too. About a 1/3 cup of mozzarella cheese. Then our little seasoning mixture that we made, we're going to put about half of it in here. I've got my 4 chicken breasts here in a greased 9x13 casserole dish. I am going to hit them with just some salt and pepper. Then we're going to take the seasoning that we have left and season up this chicken really good with it. This is a really flavorful dish. It has the layers of flavor, which make it delicious. Now we've got our cream cheese mixture, and we're just going to liberally spread some of this across every piece of chicken. The thing I like about this too is that it cooks up really quickly, because this chicken, we've split it in half so it's nice and thin. That's all I have left, but I always just go ahead and put it on here. This recipe also calls for 8 ounces of sun-dried tomatoes, and this jar is 8.5 ounces, but I never use the full 8.5 ounces. You can like not even see this chicken. It's covered with all this mixture. These are very strong, like they're not spicy, but they just have a strong flavor. So I use them fairly sparingly. Sometimes I'll chop them up even smaller, but these look like they're cut up pretty good, and they're really oily. We do like this flavor, we just don't want 8 ounces of it. We probably used maybe a 1/3 of that jar or a 1/4. Then it does say to just drizzle a little bit of this oil out of here over the top, and I do that. It's really strong. Hit it with a little bit more mozzarella cheese, just a smidgen. We're going to bake this at 400 degrees covered with aluminum foil for about 20 minutes. Then we'll pull that off and bake it another 15 uncovered. Stop the presses. I forgot something. I have some pork rinds, just plain pork rinds. They're not seasoned. And I'm going to crush those up here. This recipe is keto friendly. It's also gluten-free and it's low carb. And I'm not following keto or anything like that, but I'm just trying to be more mindful of little things. One of the suggestions was to put a crunchy topping on this. And I've never done that when I've made this before. But the pork rinds should be keto friendly. I'm just going to sprinkle some of my mindful pork rinds over the top of this recipe. Some of them are a little crunched up more than others, but I'm just going to do a little bit because we've never tried this before. I don't want them to end up burnt. And yes, this may give us a little extra pop there that we love. Now, I'm going to cover that up, put it back in the oven, and we're going to move on to making some instant mashed potatoes. I boil 1.5 cups of water with just a couple tablespoons of butter. Then the other half cup of liquid is heavy cream. And then you just mix your potatoes in here. I had not planned on making mashed potatoes this night. I was going to do some corn, but my youngest daughter said, "Mom, I'd really like to have some of those loaded mashed potatoes." I said, "Baby girl, I can make that happen real quick like." So this is a super easy way just to level up instant potatoes. Makes them really creamy and flavorful and makes them taste a whole lot more like homemade. I always throw a little extra salt and pepper on mine, and if I was not going to load them, I may put another pat or two of butter on it, but I just topped these with some shredded cheddar cheese and some real bacon pieces, and then I just put those in the oven alongside this chicken for a few minutes. Speaking of this chicken, look how beautiful it is. It's funny how you don't have something for a while and you just forget how much you love it. I always let mine sit here and let this sauce thicken up just a little bit. There come our loaded mashed potatoes, and I just throw a little bit of green onion on the top of them. This baked Tuscan chicken, not only is it delicious, but it's like low carb and keto friendly, and it's also gluten free. You can actually use leftover chicken or rotisserie chicken and make this more like a casserole like we're familiar with. And you could kick it up with some spices like cayenne and stuff like that. But we love it just like this. It had been way too long since we had Tuscan chicken. I'm going to bake up a loaf of this frozen bread dough. I'm using the speed thaw method. Put it in a loaf pan, cover it with a greased piece of plastic wrap. Have your oven preheated to 175 degrees. Turn it off and just let it rise in there. Then, once it has risen, you're going to bake it for about 25 or 30 minutes at 350 degrees. But mine had just a little bit of problem here. Here's my bread. It had to sit here a while, but y'all, don't make fun of it. It's pitiful. Look at it. But let me explain what happened here. Okie dokie, here's what happened. And y'all just ignore all this. I'm having myself a nail makeup Monday. I needed it. I needed a day off. I really did. But anyway, I did the little method I showed you, which is the quick thaw and rise method. But I had about 3 hours of a show in here on Investigation Discovery that I had not got to watch yet. So I got my laundry going and started today and cleaned up around here a little bit. And then I just, went in there and sat down and started watching my show, and I forgot about this bread. Did you see how big that thing had risen up over the top? So when I went to pull my saran wrap off the top, it like pulled the air out of that one end of it. But you know what? We're going to eat it. It's going to be fine. It'll taste just fine. But, that is just the Lord's way of keeping me humble. Y'all are so sweet and always telling me, "Oh, your food looks so delicious. It looks so good." Well, the Lord, He keeps me honest with bread. I have struggled with bread. And this was just frozen dough. But anyway, he's keeping me honest, but we're eating it. We're going to eat it. And even though my bread looked funny, it still tasted really good with this cheeseburger soup, and it has a little surprise topping to it, just like our Tuscan chicken did. The first thing that I'm doing to make this soup is to get all my dicing out of the way, and I diced up about 4 russet potatoes, just regular size, really small, half of a sweet Vidalia onion, and about 5 or 6 slices of bacon. Just cook your bacon off in your pot, then remove it, and I did leave the bacon grease in there while I browned up a pound of hamburger meat. Then I did drain my hamburger meat off as well. Back into my big pot, I've put in about a half a stick of butter, and I'm going to saute up those onions for about 4 or 5 minutes. Then I'm going to add a little bit of garlic. Now, if I had had some celery, that would have went in here, but I didn't have any celery or carrots. Now I'm adding in some flour, about 6 tablespoons of it. And I'm going to cook this for 2 or 3 minutes here and just make sure that raw flour taste is out. Then I'm going to whisk in 4 cups of chicken broth, and that is one of the big 32-ounce containers. Want to whisk the entire time that I'm pouring this in. Pour in a cup of heavy cream, about a teaspoon or so of Worcestershire sauce. I'm just going to stir all that together and get that combined. Then, real careful like, I'm going to add in my diced potatoes. And I'm going to add in that browned ground beef that I have drained. Again, just combine everything really good, and I always hit it with just a little bit of seasonings here. I'm using some black pepper and my Auntie Nono's, which is salt and garlic and onion powder. I'm going to mix all this up really good and bring it up to a boil. Then I'm just going to turn it down to simmer and kind of set my lid off to the side a little bit on there. Cook it about 10 or 15 minutes till my potatoes are good and tender. Then I'm just going to remove it from the heat, and I'm going to stir in about 2 cups of some sharp cheddar cheese here and get it all mixed in. That melts down beautifully, and I'm going to put in almost all of my bacon. I'm just going to save a little bit of that out to garnish the top of my soup bowls with. This is so velvety and so creamy. This tastes so very good. The recipe said cut you up some pickles and put on the top of your soup. They said whatever you do, do not skip this step for your cheeseburger. And this was really, really good. I highly recommend when you make this soup, don't skip the pickles. That just was like the icing on the cake. This soup hit the spot. It was very rich and hearty, very flavorful, and I wondered if you could even use pasta instead of potatoes. The highlight of this week was definitely this cake, and it starts with just a regular box Devil Foods cake prepared according to the package. Then I am taking a wooden spoon that has a round handle, and I'm just poking plenty of big holes all in my prepared cake. That is why it's called a poke cake. You're poking your holes in it. Then I take a jar of hot fudge, microwave that in about 30-second increments, and this is about a 12-inch jar, and you're just going to cover the top of your cake with this hot fudge. Now you're going to need to let it set and cool for a little while. Now I'm taking just one of the small boxes of instant chocolate pudding and mixing it up thoroughly with 2 cups of cold milk till it begins to set up just a little bit. Then you are going to spread this out all across your hot fudge layer. Just want to make sure you get it completely covered. And I'm going to put the lid on mine, and I put it in the refrigerator overnight. You definitely need to let it set and chill for at least an hour if you're doing this, all in one day. The next day, I'm taking about 2 cups of heavy cream, and I'm going to whip those up with my hand mixer until some soft peaks start to form. Then I'm going to add in about 1/3 cup of just regular granulated sugar and get that mixed in. And then I'm going to add in about 1/2 teaspoon of mint extract, and that 1/2 teaspoon of mint was perfect in this. And then continue mixing it until stiff peaks form. Next, you're just going to stir in green food coloring into your topping until you get it the color of green that you want. This is your own preference. You could definitely just use a big carton of Cool Whip and color it green, but I had plenty of heavy whipping cream on hand. Just going to spread that all across your cake. Be careful that you don't disturb the chocolate underneath and get it mixed in. You just want this to be a really pretty solid green. And then I took about half a cup or cup of these Andes mints, and I just chopped them up really little and sprinkled them all across the top of this. Of course, you keep this cake in the refrigerator until you're ready to eat it, and then you store it in the fridge. And I took this to Sunday dinner at my mom's, and look how pretty it turned out. That chocolate pudding underneath that little bit of mint with just a little bit of the crispy mint on the top. This is perfect. I can't believe I've waited so long to try this cake. It's absolutely delicious. So cute for St. Patrick's Day coming up. And here is a picture of my plate from Granny's Sunday dinner. And if you don't follow me on Instagram, you really should. We have a lot of fun there. And nearly every Sunday, I will post a picture of my Sunday dinner plate with the hashtag Sunday dinner at Granny's. And that is something we all look forward to seeing every week. If you're enjoying today's video, I would just love it if you'd give it a thumbs up. And if you've not subscribed yet, please hit that red bell and turn on your notifications so you never miss any of the fun. Thank you so much for being here this week. I never take your time for granted. And until next week, I send you love from my kitchen.